OpenAI was founded in late 2015 by a group of tech visionaries, including Sam Altman and Elon Musk. They pledged around $1 billion to start a research lab dedicated to artificial intelligence, with the mission of ensuring that advanced AI technologies benefit all of humanity. In its early years, OpenAI explored various AI projects, but a major breakthrough came in 2018 when the team introduced a new kind of language model called a Generative Pre-trained Transformer, or GPT for short. The first GPT model, often later referred to as GPT-1, was announced in a research paper by Alec Radford and colleagues in June 2018. This model showed that by pre-training a large neural network on a huge collection of text from the internet, the AI could learn the patterns of language. In practical terms, GPT-1 learned to predict the next word in a sentence, which let it generate coherent text and display surprising bits of world knowledge it picked up from its training data. It was a promising start, demonstrating that a single AI model could be taught to write in natural language about almost any topic, just by learning from unlabeled text. Building on that success, OpenAI took a big leap forward with GPT-2 in February 2019. GPT-2 was a much larger and more powerful version of the model. When OpenAI first showcased GPT-2, it gained widespread attention because it could produce eerily human-like paragraphs of text given just a short prompt. For example, if you gave GPT-2 an opening line of a story, it could continue with several plausible-sounding paragraphs on its own. The capabilities were impressive. The model could generate news articles, fiction, or essays that some readers found hard to distinguish from human writing. However, this power also raised concerns. OpenAI worried that such a model might be misused to churn out fake news or spam at a massive scale. Due to these concerns, the organization took the unusual step of not immediately releasing the full GPT-2 model to the public. They initially published only a smaller version as a demonstration, holding back the largest version until they felt more confident that it wouldn't be abused. Some experts at the time were skeptical and felt the fears were overblown, but OpenAI chose a cautious approach. By November 2019, after observing no major incidents of misuse, OpenAI went ahead and released the complete GPT-2 model to the world. This marked an early instance of the tough judgment calls AI labs face regarding openness versus safety. The next milestone was GPT-3, unveiled in 2020, which represented an enormous jump in scale and capability. GPT-3 was first described in a May 2020 paper, and its size stunned the AI community. The model contained around 175 billion parameters, compared to 1.5 billion for the full GPT-2. In the context of AI, parameters can be thought of as the internal settings or weights of the neural network. Having more parameters generally allows the model to capture more complexity. In fact, GPT-3 was about 100 times larger than GPT-2, a difference on the order of 2 magnitudes. Thanks to this huge capacity and extensive training on text from the internet, GPT-3 abilities were far more advanced. It could not only generate longer and more coherent passages of text, but also perform tasks like answering questions, writing code, translating between languages, and even composing poetry or jokes, all without being specifically trained for each task. It learned these abilities simply from observing patterns in its training data. When GPT-3 was made public via private beta access in mid-2020, many users were amazed by how fluent and versatile its outputs were. It often felt like you could ask GPT-3 anything, from trivial prompts to complex questions, and get a meaningful response. This was the point where people started to realize just how powerful these generative models could become. OpenAI, however, continued to be cautious about how it rolled out GPT-3. The organization did not release the trained model's code or weights for anyone to download, due to concerns about misuse and the sheer resources required to run it. Instead, OpenAI offered access to GPT-3 through a cloud-based API service, so developers and companies could send queries to the model over the internet and receive its responses. This allowed OpenAI to monitor and manage how GPT-3 was used. Around the same time, in late 2020, Microsoft became closely involved. It invested in OpenAI and obtained an exclusive license to the underlying GPT-3 technology. Microsoft's investment and cloud infrastructure, Azure, helped provide the immense computing power needed to train and run models of this size. GPT-3 thus set the stage as a kind of platform on which many applications could be built, but it was still somewhat raw in its initial form. Users noticed it could produce impressive results one moment and then errors or nonsensical answers the next. Over the following 2 years, OpenAI focused on making its AI models more reliable, helpful, and safe to interact with. A key effort in this period was a project called InstructGPT, announced in early 2022, which aimed to fine-tune GPT-3 to better follow human instructions. Instead of just predicting the next word in generic internet text, the idea was to teach the model to pay more attention to what users actually want, to align the AI's outputs with human intentions. OpenAI researchers achieved this by incorporating human feedback into the training loop. They would have humans engage with the model, provide example responses, and rank the model's answers, and then use a technique called reinforcement learning from human feedback (RLHF) to adjust the model. The result of this process was a version of GPT-3 that was markedly better at following directions and producing useful, truthful answers compared to the original GPT-3. These improved models were less likely to wander off topic or output inappropriate content, and they became the default deployed in OpenAI's API. This refinement was essentially what came to be known as the GPT 3.5 series of models. By mid-2022, OpenAI had a very powerful engine, GPT 3.5, that could understand instructions and dialogue much more naturally than any AI before it. All that remained was to package this capability in a way that the general public could easily use, which set the stage for ChatGPT. On November 30, 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT to the public for the first time. It was launched as a free research preview, essentially a prototype chatbot that anyone could try online. ChatGPT was built on the GPT 3.5 model and presented in a simple conversational interface. You could type in a question or prompt, and the AI would reply with an answer or explanation in seconds. Although internally it was an AI writing text, to users it felt like chatting with a knowledgeable if sometimes overly verbose assistant. This approachable format and the model's capability led to instant popularity. Within just 5 days of its launch, over 1 million users had signed up to experiment with ChatGPT. People were asking it everything imaginable, to help solve coding bugs, to explain scientific concepts, to write poems and song lyrics, to draft emails, and much more. By January 2023, barely 2 months after release, ChatGPT's user base had grown to over 100 million active users, a growth rate faster than any consumer software application in history up to that point. For comparison, it took some of the most popular apps like Instagram or TikTok many months or even years to reach that many users. The fact that an AI chatbot achieved this in a matter of weeks was a clear signal that something had changed. ChatGPT had tapped into a genuine public fascination. Suddenly, it seemed everyone was talking about artificial intelligence and trying out ChatGPT's capabilities. OpenAI had deliberately offered it free, at least initially, to gather feedback and allow wide access, and the strategy succeeded beyond expectations in raising awareness. The public reception of ChatGPT was a mix of astonishment and alarm, but mostly astonishment. For millions of people, this was their first hands-on experience with such an advanced AI. Users described the interactions as surprisingly human-like. ChatGPT could carry a conversation, remember context from earlier messages, and produce answers that felt very coherent and relevant. It wasn't perfect. It would occasionally give wrong answers, sometimes with confident-sounding phrasing, or refuse to answer certain questions, but overall it was a leap in quality. Many observers noted that ChatGPT crossed a threshold of usefulness that previous AI models hadn't. Earlier GPT models were powerful under the hood, but not user-friendly. By contrast, ChatGPT was easy to talk to and often startlingly good at generating what the user needed. People used it to brainstorm ideas, get writing suggestions, learn about complex topics in a simplified way, and even for entertainment by having it tell stories or jokes. At times, users could almost forget they were chatting with a machine. This widespread utility is what made ChatGPT go viral well beyond tech circles. At the same time, the tool's popularity raised some concerns and debates. Educators, for instance, realized that students might try to use ChatGPT to write essays or solve homework, prompting worries about plagiarism and academic dishonesty. There were discussions in schools and universities about how to handle AI-generated content. In the broader media, some critics warned that chatbots like ChatGPT could be used to spread misinformation or might confidently spout incorrect facts, since the model sometimes hallucinated, i.e. made things up. OpenAI had built in some safeguards and content filters, and the model refused many inappropriate requests, but it was clearly not foolproof. These issues sparked a lot of conversation about the ethical and societal implications of readily available AI. Still, the overall public sentiment included a strong sense of excitement. For every worry, there was also wonder. People were imagining new ways to leverage this tool in daily life and work. Could it help write and debug code faster? Yes, many developers were already using it for that. Could it assist in customer service or as a tutoring tool? Very possibly. The possibilities seemed endless, and startups and established companies alike began brainstorming how to incorporate technologies like ChatGPT into their products and services. The success of ChatGPT sent ripples throughout the tech industry and even triggered what some called an AI arms race among big tech companies. Given the massive public interest, other organizations accelerated their own AI plans. In early 2023, Microsoft, which had heavily invested in OpenAI, announced that it would integrate the brains behind ChatGPT into its Bing search engine and other products, aiming to provide a more conversational search and computing experience. This was a bold move to challenge Google's long-held dominance in search. In fact, Google itself was so alarmed by the potential of ChatGPT to append how people find information that it declared code red internally. By February 2023, Google hurriedly announced its own conversational AI service named Bard, a direct response to ChatGPT's rise. This period marked a pivotal moment where generative AI became a key competitive front for big tech companies. Everybody from Meta, Facebook's parent company, to smaller AI startups started working on or showcasing their own AI chatbots and creative AI tools. In addition, the rapid adoption of ChatGPT prompted wider public discourse. It wasn't just a tech story, but a cultural one. Mainstream news outlets ran pieces on how AI might change the job market, or how tools like ChatGPT could assist in healthcare or law. Governments and regulatory bodies also began paying attention, considering whether new rules were needed for AI systems in light of their sudden ubiquity. In short, ChatGPT's launch catalyzed a surge of interest and investment in AI across the board, arguably making late 2022 and early 2023 a turning point for the field. OpenAI did not stop with the initial version of ChatGPT. Just a few months later, on March 14, 2023, the company announced the release of GPT-4, the next-generation model in the GPT series. This model was even more advanced and was introduced as a multimodal AI, meaning it could accept images as inputs as well as text. GPT-4 demonstrated a variety of improvements. For example, it was tested on a simulated bar exam the test law graduates take to become licensed lawyers and scored around the top 10% of test takers, whereas the earlier GPT 3.5-based model had scored around the bottom 10%. In other words, GPT-4 showed a level of understanding and reasoning on complex exams that was dramatically better than its predecessor. It could also handle much longer inputs and outputs up to about 25,000 words of text, enabling more extensive conversations or document analysis. OpenAI integrated GPT-4 into ChatGPT by offering a premium subscription tier called ChatGPT Plus. Subscribers who paid a monthly fee could access a version of ChatGPT powered by GPT-4, which tended to give even more accurate and detailed answers, especially for complex or nuanced questions. Users noticed that the GPT-4-powered ChatGPT was generally an improvement. It was better at tasks like solving tricky problems or giving well-reasoned explanations. It also had a higher ability to handle things like interpreting an image, for example, describing what's in a picture, or solving problems that involve visual data, though this feature was rolled out carefully. OpenAI did disclose that they kept certain details about GPT-4 secret, such as the exact size of the model, which was a departure from some earlier practices. The reason given was the competitive landscape and safety considerations. By this time, it was clear that ChatGPT was not just a one-off product but an evolving platform. Through 2023, OpenAI continued to update ChatGPT, adding features like plugins allowing it to access external tools and information sources, releasing its ChatGPT app for phones, and extending its capabilities, for instance, enabling it to speak answers or interpret images as those features became available. Looking at the full story, from OpenAI's founding to ChatGPT's emergence, it's evident that this was a watershed journey in the history of artificial intelligence. In the span of about 7 years, AI went from relatively niche lab projects to a globally used technology, that millions interact with in daily life. ChatGPT in particular has been widely credited with bringing AI into the mainstream consciousness. It took the breakthroughs of its GPT predecessors and packaged them in an accessible, engaging form that anyone could try. By doing so, it gave the world a tangible glimpse of how far AI had advanced. Many commentators have said that the launch of ChatGPT will be remembered as a pivotal moment, a point when the capabilities of AI became obvious to the general public, not just to researchers. The term generative AI, which refers to AI systems that generate content like text or images, became a household phrase thanks to ChatGPT's fame. Importantly, ChatGPT also sparked broader conversations about how AI should be developed and used responsibly. Its story is intertwined with questions about safety, ethics, and the future of work and education in an AI-powered world. Yet, despite these complex questions, one thing is clear: ChatGPT demonstrated unprecedented usefulness and versatility for an AI system, effectively propelling the field of AI forward in the public eye. From a fledgling nonprofit lab in 2015 to a leader of a global AI boom, by 2023, OpenAI's journey to ChatGPT exemplifies how quickly AI technology can evolve. The narrative of ChatGPT's creation and impact is now a prominent chapter in the history of AI, a chapter that shows both the incredible potential of these technologies and the importance of guiding them thoughtfully for the benefit of all.